I'm just a regular guy. I'm Liam Cross, a history teacher. Nothing fancy about that. I spend my days teaching kids about the past, trying to show them how history is full of mistakes and lessons and consequences. If there's one thing I thought I understood, it was how life works. How things go wrong when you least expect it. How things are always more complicated than they seem. I never thought that I'd find myself on the other side of one of those stories. It was late, way later than I had planned to be at school. 9:47 p.m. The classroom was empty. The papers were piling up in front of me, each essay reminding me of how much I had to do, and yet, I couldn't seem to focus. I rubbed my eyes, trying to get the energy to keep going, but nothing was working. The clock on the wall ticked relentlessly, mocking me, every second taking me further away from the promise I made to Isabel. I had promised her I'd be home for dinner, but there I was, stuck in the same place, staring at papers that were no longer even registering in my mind. I should have just gone home. I glanced at the cold cup of coffee beside me. The steam was long gone. I picked it up, took a sip, and winced. It tasted awful, but that's how my life had been feeling lately. Awful, but I kept drinking it anyway. Isabel had been distant. I didn't want to admit it to myself, but I knew something was off. It wasn't that we were fighting. No, it was something quieter than that. She wasn't angry. She just wasn't there. I had tried to talk to her, but when I did, she'd just smile and brush it off. She was fine. She was always fine. But I could feel the distance growing, and I couldn't stop it. I couldn't even figure out why it was happening. I wanted to be close to her, but the more I tried, the more I felt like I was losing her. It was a slow burn, but it was there. I was so deep in my thoughts that I almost didn't hear my laptop flicker. The screen went dark for a moment, and then flickered back to life. I cursed, annoyed by the interruption, but more frustrated that my mind wasn't where it needed to be. I needed to get these essays done. I couldn't let her down. Then, it happened. The screen flickered again, but this time, it didn't come back on. No, 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 I muttered under my breath. I tapped the keys furiously, my frustration bubbling over. The battery had died. I had been working on this damn computer for hours, and now it had given up. I slammed my hand against the desk. There was no way I was dealing with this. I'd had enough. I grabbed my coat, shoved my things into my bag, and walked out of the classroom. The parking lot was eerily quiet, just a few cars parked in the distance. I was alone with my thoughts. Isabel. The thought of her kept pulling me back. I knew something wasn't right. It was like I could feel the distance between us growing. But every time I tried to confront her about it, she'd smile and tell me everything was fine. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But it wasn't fine. As I drove home, the guilt began to gnaw at me. I could have been there more for her. I could have made more of an effort. But instead, I let work swallow me whole. I could feel the tension rising in my chest, but I told myself it was just stress. When I got home, the silence hit me like a slap in the face. The house was too quiet, too empty. I walked into the kitchen and found a note from Isabel on the counter. I was expecting something simple, as usual, and there it was. Working late. Leftovers in the fridge. Love you. I smiled, but it felt hollow. It always felt hollow lately. I grabbed the lasagna from the fridge and heated it up. But as I carried it to the office, something inside me twisted. Why did I feel so far away from her? She had left me food. She had written me a note. Why did it feel like she was a stranger? I set the plate down, picked up Isabel's laptop, and hesitated. It's just grading. Just a few more essays, then I'll be done. She won't mind. She never minds. But even as I told myself that, I knew it wasn't about the essays. It was about the growing distance between us. It was about the feeling I couldn't shake, that I was losing her. Slowly, quietly, I opened the laptop and clicked on the file. Then, I saw it. A message. From Nathan. I froze. It wasn't just any message. It was a message that shattered everything. Can't wait to see you tomorrow, babe. Hotel's booked. Same place as last time. My chest tightened. My heart was pounding in my ears. I read the words again, trying to make sense of them. My brother. Nathan. Isabel. Babe. Hotels. The words made no sense, and yet they made all the sense in the world. Nathan. My brother. And Isabel, my wife, the betrayal, the pain. I didn't even know how to process it. I didn't know how to breathe. I clicked on the conversation, my hands shaking, my mind already racing. How long? How long had they been lying to me? Miss you already. Last night was incredible. God, you're amazing. We need to be more careful. Caleb almost caught me deleting our texts last week. I could feel the world crumbling around me. The room felt smaller. My breath was shallow. I couldn't think straight. My mind was screaming, but my body wouldn't move. It was like I was watching someone else's life, someone else's pain, and I couldn't stop it. Then came the photos. Isabel and Nathan, smiling in front of the Eiffel Tower, his arm around her waist, their faces glowing with happiness. How had I missed it? How had I been so blind? I kept scrolling, but I didn't want to see more. I didn't want to see the evidence that shattered everything I had ever known. But I couldn't stop myself. The receipts, the credit card statements, hotels, dinners, jewelry. It was all there. They had spent our money, our lives, without a second thought, without me. But then, the worst part. A doctor's appointment, a pregnancy scare. Emily, my daughter. I sat there, staring at the screen, my entire world crumbling. Was she mine? Was she even my child? I felt like I was suffocating, like the air had been sucked out of the room. Every moment, every smile, every touch we had shared, all of it was a lie. And in that moment, I knew I couldn't just sit here and let this destroy me. I couldn't be the victim anymore. I was done. I sat there, staring at the screen, not able to make sense of anything anymore. My mind was a whirlwind. My brother, my wife, the affair, the lies. It all felt like a bad dream, except it wasn't a dream. It was real, and I was awake. I could feel it in my chest, this tight, unbearable weight. My hands were shaking, my fingers cold as I hovered over the keyboard. I wanted to close the laptop, to run away from it, but I couldn't. I couldn't tear myself away from the truth, no matter how much it hurt. I don't know how long I sat there. 10 minutes? An hour? Time didn't exist. My world had shattered, and in its place, there was nothing but this hollow, aching emptiness. The more I read, the more the pieces of my life fell apart. The vacations they had taken, places I thought were business trips, the lies they had told me, all for their secret world. How long had they been planning this? How long had I been so blind? And the photos, my brother and my wife, happy, smiling, in places I'd never been. Their faces were brighter, more alive than I'd ever seen. How could she do this to me? How could she do this to us? And Nathan, how could he betray me like that? He was my brother. We grew up together. We shared everything. Or so I thought. I closed my eyes, trying to block out the images, but they kept coming, over and over. Isabel and Nathan. Their happiness was a knife to my heart. My breath was coming in ragged gasps. I didn't know what to do, didn't know what to feel. I was lost. How could I ever face her again? How could I ever look him in the eye again? The room was too small. The walls were closing in. I couldn't breathe. I stood up, pacing. I needed to move. I needed to think. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw them. My mind wouldn't let me escape. I went into the kitchen, my hands trembling as I poured myself a glass of water, but it didn't help. Nothing helped. My body was running on autopilot. I couldn't even focus on the taste of the water in my mouth. It was all a blur, like everything in my life had become a blur. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. The betrayal wasn't just the affair. It was the lies, the manipulation, the secrets they'd kept from me, from us. I thought I knew Isabel. I thought I knew Nathan. But now, I was questioning everything. And the worst part, the part that was eating away at me, was Emily. Our daughter. My daughter. I had raised her. I had been there for every moment of her life, watching her grow. How could they do this to her, too? How could Isabel, the woman I loved, the woman I trusted, let me be a fool like this? I don't know how much time passed before I forced myself to sit down at the desk again. I opened the laptop. I had to know everything. I couldn't let this go. I had to find out how deep this went. I couldn't let them get away with it. The folders were buried deep in her computer, hidden among work projects and old documents. I clicked through them, opening one file after another. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't stop myself. This was my life, my family, and I was going to get the answers. There were more pictures. Thousands of them. Photos of Isabel and Nathan together. So many of them. So many moments, so many years of their secret life. A life they had been living behind my back. They were in Paris, in Rome, in Bali, places I had never seen, places I didn't even know about. They looked so happy. And every picture just dug a deeper hole in my chest. How had I not seen this? How had I been so blind? I clicked through more files, my heart pounding harder with every click. And then I found it. The folder I wasn't ready to open. I knew what was in it, but I didn't care. I had to see it. I had to know everything. It was a folder with receipts, hotel stays, expensive gifts, credit card transactions. I could feel the blood rushing to my head as I scrolled through the pages. Thousands of dollars spent on hotels, fancy dinners, jewelry, all of it hidden from me, all of it spent behind my back. How had I missed it? How could she have lied to me like this? How could Nathan? There were more emails, more conversations, more lies, more proof that they had been living a completely different life, a life that didn't include me, a life I wasn't part of. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the laptop across the room, but I couldn't. I was stuck in this hell of my own making. I found an email. Isabel had sent it. It was from a doctor. The subject line, private appointment, urgent. My hands were shaking as I clicked it. I knew what it was going to say. I had to read it. I couldn't stop myself. And there it was. The confirmation. A pregnancy scare. Emily. My daughter. I felt the ground fall out from under me. Was she mine? How could I even know? How could I ever trust anything again? My mind was spinning and I couldn't stop it. Every question I had only led to more questions. More pain. I sat back in the chair, the weight of everything crashing down on me. This wasn't just about Isabel. This wasn't just about Nathan. It was about everything I had ever believed. Everything I had ever known. I had been living a lie. My marriage. My family. Everything. I thought I had control, but I didn't. I thought I knew who they were, but I didn't. Isabel and Nathan had been hiding their affair for so long, and I had no idea. I had been blind, but now, I couldn't escape it. I had to face the truth, even if it destroyed me. But I couldn't just sit here and take it. I couldn't let them get away with it. I had to act. I couldn't let this be the end. It couldn't be. I was going to find a way to make them pay for what they did to me. To us. I closed the laptop, taking a deep breath. My mind was racing, but I had to focus. I had to plan. There was too much at stake. Too much to lose. I couldn't let them destroy me. I couldn't let them tear apart my life without doing something. I stood up, my legs unsteady. I felt like I was going to collapse, but I couldn't. I couldn't let this crush me. Not yet. Not while I still had a chance. I would make them pay. I had spent hours pacing around the house, my mind refusing to settle. Every moment I could hear the sound of Isabel's voice, her laughter, the memories of who we were, who I thought we were, echoing in my head. It was all a lie. All of it. And yet, I still couldn't shake the image of her face, the softness in her eyes when she'd look at me, the way she would brush her hair behind her ear just to tease me. How was it possible to hate and love someone so much at the same time? I kept thinking, maybe I should confront her now. Right now. Get it over with. But something stopped me. Fear? Anger? I didn't know. It wasn't about getting closure. I wasn't sure I'd ever get that, but I had to make sure my next steps were right. I had to plan. I didn't want to look weak in front of her. I didn't want her to see the pain in my eyes. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of seeing me break. I wanted to be in control when I faced her. But as I sat there, the guilt started to eat at me. Emily. What would she think? I had been her father for all these years, and now I wasn't even sure if I was her real father. Could I stand to lose her, too? The thought of it was unbearable. The house was still quiet when Isabel arrived home. I had barely moved, sitting in the office, staring at the wall. Time had slowed down, dragging its feet. I kept thinking about the things I needed to say, the things I would do. There was no script. There was no right way to approach this. My mind spun with 100 possible scenarios, none of which felt right. The sound of her car pulling into the driveway snapped me out of my thoughts. She was home. I stood up, taking a deep breath, trying to steady myself. My hands were still shaking. She walked in, looking just like she always did. Isabel, the woman I married, the woman I thought I knew. Her eyes brightened when she saw me. "Hey, honey, how was your day?" I didn't answer immediately. I couldn't. My throat was tight. She was standing there, just a few feet away, and it felt like a million miles. How could she stand there, pretending everything was fine? "I need to talk to you," I finally said. My voice sounded distant, even to me. I couldn't recognize it. I took another breath. "It's about Nathan." She froze. Her face didn't show it, but I saw the shift, the briefest flicker of panic in her eyes. She tried to recover quickly, to hide it, but it was too late. I'd already seen it. "What about Nathan?" she asked, a little too casually. I walked toward her, keeping my eyes locked with hers. "I know, Isabel. I know everything." Her expression faltered, her lips parting slightly. "What do you mean, you know?" she asked, her voice trembling. "You think you can lie to me forever?" I heard myself say, my anger slowly building. It wasn't just anger at her anymore. It was everything. Every moment she lied to me, every time I thought we were happy. The whole goddamn facade was crumbling. You and Nathan. The hotel bookings. The trips. The lies. Isabel's face went pale. Her mouth opened, and I could see the words forming in her mind, but they didn't come out. Instead, she shook her head, barely able to look at me. "Caleb, I'm so sorry," she whispered, the tears beginning to fall. "I never wanted to hurt you." I felt my chest tighten. The tears were coming, but I couldn't let them show. I was done. I wasn't going to cry for her. I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. Not anymore. I wanted to scream, to tear everything down, to shatter the wall she had built between us. 6 years, Isabel. 6 years, I whispered, my voice shaky with emotion I couldn't hold back. "And you think sorry is going to fix this?" She reached for me, her hand trembling as it extended toward me, but I stepped back, shaking my head. I couldn't, no, I wouldn't, let her touch me. Not after what she did. I don't know what to say," she stammered, her voice breaking. "I don't know what happened. I don't know. Nathan understood me in a way you didn't. He was there when you weren't. It just happened." The way she said it, like it was something that just happened, it hit me harder than anything. Like I was supposed to accept it, as if it was some kind of mistake she made without even thinking. My heart pounded in my chest, a raw, aching pain ripping through me. "Isabel, you don't get it. You don't get it at all," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "This isn't just about you and Nathan. This is about everything we've built. About Emily." Her face paled. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She closed her eyes briefly, as though she couldn't face me anymore. "Do you even know if she's mine?" I asked, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. She looked up at me, her eyes wide with fear. The tears were streaming down her face now. "Caleb, No," I cut her off, stepping back again. "I can't. I don't even know what to think anymore." I couldn't look at her anymore. I couldn't. I didn't want to see the face of the woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, who had betrayed me, who had betrayed us. I turned away from her and walked toward the door, my heart racing with a mixture of fury and disbelief. I had to get out of that room, out of the house. I had to clear my head. But before I reached the door, I heard her voice. It was soft, almost pleading. "Caleb, please, don't do this. We can fix this. We can fix everything." I stopped, my hand resting on the door handle, but I didn't turn around. I couldn't. "No," I said. "I can't fix this. You broke it." I walked out, slamming the door behind me. I couldn't stay in that house any longer. Not after what happened. Not after the words that were said, the truths that had come crashing down. It was like a weight had been pressing down on me for months, and now it was crushing me. I walked out of the door, slamming it behind me with a force I didn't know I had in me. The air outside felt different, colder. The night stretched out in front of me, silent and indifferent. Where was I going? I didn't know. I couldn't think. My head was spinning, my heart was racing, and the last few hours, hell, the last years, were running through my mind like a film I couldn't stop playing. Isabel. Nathan. How could I not have seen it? How had I been so blind? My own brother. My wife. I wanted to scream, to yell, to throw something, but all I could do was keep walking, one foot in front of the other. I drove, aimlessly, just needing space, needing to get away from everything. The streets were empty, the city lights flickering as I passed. It all felt surreal, like I was in some kind of dream I couldn't wake up from. I couldn't believe it. This wasn't my life. This couldn't be happening. I kept thinking about Emily, my daughter, my little girl. My hands tightened on the steering wheel as I thought about how, all this time, I had raised her, loved her, been there for her through every scraped knee, every tear. How could I not be the one to protect her from this? From the truth that was starting to come undone? I don't know how long I drove. I ended up at a small park, somewhere I used to go when I needed to think. But there was no thinking now, only a sense of overwhelming loss, like everything I had built had crumbled into dust. I didn't know where to start, how to fix it, how to fix me. The headlights of my car cast long shadows as I sat there in the driver's seat, staring out into the distance. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. Isabel. Over and over. Her voice on the other end of the line. Desperate, apologizing, pleading for me to come home, to talk. But what was there left to say? I ignored it, the screen lighting up with her name again. And then Nathan. His name appeared on the screen, and I couldn't help it. Anger, raw and bitter, surged up inside me. How dare he? How dare he do this to me? To us? I wanted to pick up the phone, to confront him, but what good would it do? They had already taken everything. I couldn't even look at him. I couldn't look at either of them. I wanted to talk to someone. I needed someone to hear me, to understand. I reached out to Alex, my best friend, the one person who had been there through everything, the highs and the lows. The man who had seen me at my worst and never judged me. He picked up on the first ring. Liam? Where are you? His voice was calm, steady, as if he already knew something was wrong. I don't know, man, I said, trying to steady my voice, but it cracked anyway. I need to talk. Where are you? I'll come to you, he said, not missing a beat. I gave him the address to the park, and within minutes, he was there, pulling up beside me. He got out of the car and came to the window, his expression serious, like he knew this was more than just a conversation. I rolled down the window. I don't even know where to start, I said, my voice barely a whisper. She betrayed me. She betrayed us. And Nathan, my brother, I don't even know how to breathe right now. Alex sat down in the passenger seat, his face softening with concern. He didn't say anything for a moment, just letting me speak. They've been lying to me for years, Alex. How could I not see it? How did I not know? I ran my hands through my hair, frustration building in my chest. I loved her. I trusted her. I thought we were building a life together. You were, Alex said, his voice firm. But she wasn't. And that's not your fault, Liam. You didn't do anything wrong. She chose to betray you. I just don't know if I can ever get over this, I said, my voice breaking. How can I face her again? How can I look at Nathan? He was supposed to be my brother, my family. Alex's eyes softened. I get it. I really do. But you've got to take it one step at a time. You can't fix this all in one night. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that somehow this could be fixed. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't be. The damage was done. And no amount of apologies from Isabel or Nathan would change that. I'm just so angry, I admitted, my voice thick with emotion. I don't know what to do with it. I don't know where to put it. Alex placed a hand on my shoulder, his voice low but steady. You don't have to have all the answers right now. All you can do is take it one day at a time. You're allowed to feel angry. You're allowed to feel hurt. But don't let it consume you. Don't let it destroy you. I didn't know what the hell I was supposed to do, but hearing him say that, it was like a small light in the darkness. Like maybe, just maybe, I could find my way out of this. Alex stayed with me for a while, talking through everything. offering what little comfort he could. He didn't try to fix it, and for that, I was grateful. Because there was no fixing it. Not yet. Not now. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't. I couldn't face Isabel. I couldn't face the life that had been shattered. Instead, I stayed at Alex's place, barely sleeping, my mind running over everything, replaying the conversation with Isabel over and over. I kept thinking about Emily, about the fact that she was probably asleep in the house, unaware of everything that had happened. I wondered what she would think when she found out. What would she think of her mother? Of Nathan? Of me? By morning, I felt like a different person. I couldn't go back to the life I had. I couldn't go back to the house, to Isabel, not yet. I needed time. I needed space. I texted Isabel, my hands shaking as I typed the words. I need time. I can't be there right now. I didn't know when I'd be ready to talk to her again. I didn't know when I'd be ready to face this broken life. But for the first time in a long time, I felt something like clarity. I couldn't change what had happened, but I could decide what came next. And right now, that was all I could hold on to. The days after everything happened felt like I was stuck in some kind of fog. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think straight. The betrayal was so overwhelming it felt like it was crushing me. Isabel, Nathan. I kept seeing their faces, together, behind my back. I couldn't escape it. But the worst part? Emily, my daughter. I didn't even know how to look at her anymore. Was she mine? Was I really her father? I spent hours driving, not knowing where I was going. I just needed to be anywhere but there, but wherever I went, I couldn't outrun the truth. Every street, every turn, nothing could take away the weight on my chest. Alex showed up, like he always does. No questions, no judgment. Just him, sitting with me in the silence, letting me breathe. I didn't want to talk, didn't want to say anything. But when he finally spoke, it hit harder than anything. "This isn't your fault, Liam," he said, his voice steady. "She chose this, not you." I didn't know how to respond. How could I? My life had been a lie. I kept asking myself how I missed it, how I didn't see it. But Alex didn't try to fix anything. He just sat with me, like he always had. And that small act of support, it meant more than I could express. "You'll get through this," he said quietly after a while. "You're stronger than you think." It didn't feel that way. Not yet. But something in his voice made me want to believe him. Maybe, just maybe, I could get through this. Maybe I wasn't alone in it. The next day, I made the call. A divorce lawyer. The thought made my stomach churn, but I knew it was the only way forward. I couldn't keep living in this lie. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine when my whole world had turned upside down. When I met the lawyer, I felt like I was drowning in paperwork and legal jargon. But he was calm, collected. He made me feel like maybe I could handle it, even though every part of me felt like I was crumbling. I could protect my future. I could protect Emily. I wasn't going to let this be the end of everything. "Get everything you can," I told him. Every email, every text, every hotel receipt. I want it all. I signed the papers, feeling like I was leaving behind a life I'd never wanted to give up. But as I did, something shifted inside me. A small flicker of strength, something I hadn't felt in a long time. This wasn't the life I had planned, but maybe I could still build something new. I threw myself into the process, the phone calls, the meetings, the paperwork. But each time I felt myself slipping into the dark thoughts that had consumed me, I thought of Emily. I thought of her innocent face and how I needed to be the one to fight for her. I couldn't let this destroy everything I'd ever been to her. And then, for the first time in days, I didn't hear from Isabel or Nathan. The silence was almost peaceful. I didn't know what it meant, but I let myself sit with it. For once, I wasn't drowning in messages or guilt or anger. It was just me, alone with the choices I'd made. I wasn't sure what came next. I wasn't sure if I could ever look at Isabel the same way. I didn't know if Emily would ever fully understand. But I did know one thing. I had to keep moving forward. For me. For her. For the future I could build, no matter how broken everything seemed right now. The days that followed were like moving through water. Everything was heavy, slow, and exhausting. I couldn't think straight, couldn't focus on anything. I kept replaying the same scenes over and over in my mind, unable to escape them. Isabel's face when I confronted her. Nathan's betrayal. The silence in the house. It was like I was drowning in my own thoughts. I couldn't even be in the house anymore. It felt like it was suffocating me, like every room was haunted by the echoes of lies and secrets. So, I spent hours just driving, trying to outrun the feelings, trying to outrun the reality. But no matter where I went, I couldn't escape what had happened. It was always there, waiting for me. I thought about Isabel, about how she had been my partner, my love, the person I'd trusted with everything. And Nathan, my own brother. How had I missed it? How had I been so blind? One night, I found myself at the park, sitting in my car, staring at the empty benches. It was late, quiet, and I just needed to be alone. I needed to think. I thought about Emily, how she was so young and innocent, and how I wasn't sure what this would mean for her. She didn't deserve this. She deserved better than a father who was lost, drowning in the aftermath of betrayal. Then my phone buzzed. It was Alex. He didn't need to say anything. I saw the message, "You good?" It was simple, but it was enough. He didn't expect answers. He didn't judge. He just wanted to make sure I was okay. And honestly, I wasn't. I wasn't close to being okay. But hearing from him made something shift in me. Maybe I wasn't completely alone in this. Maybe I didn't have to carry it all by myself. I called him. He didn't ask questions, didn't push. He just came. We didn't talk at first. We didn't need to. But eventually, after sitting in silence for a while, he spoke. "You're not alone, man," Alex said, his voice calm, steady. It's not your fault. She made the choices. She hurt you, not the other way around." I let his words sit in the air between us. It felt like I was hearing them for the first time. I knew what he meant, but hearing it out loud made it a little more real. The guilt that had been eating at me for days started to fade, just a little. But there was still a part of me that couldn't let go. The betrayal still stung, still burned like a fresh wound. "You're going to get through this," Alex added, as if saying it again would make it more true. "I don't even know how to start getting through this," I whispered. "Everything's falling apart. I don't know where to go from here." He let out a quiet laugh, but it wasn't mocking. It was just him, trying to make me feel a little less broken. "One day at a time, man. You don't have to fix everything right now. Just get through today." That sounded easier said than done, but something in me relaxed just a little bit. I wasn't sure what came next. But maybe, just maybe, I didn't have to know. Maybe just putting one foot in front of the other was enough. The next day, I made the call. I called a lawyer. It wasn't something I thought I'd be ready for, but there it was. I couldn't stay in this state of limbo anymore. I couldn't pretend everything would magically fix itself. I met the lawyer, and as he explained the next steps, the reality of what I was facing hit me like a ton of bricks. I wasn't just dealing with the heartbreak. I was dealing with a whole mess of legal stuff now, too. But it felt like I was doing something I could control. "Get everything you can," I told him. "Every text, every email, every piece of evidence." Signing the papers didn't feel like a victory. It didn't feel like anything good, but it was the first step. A small step, but one that pushed me forward. For the first time in days, I felt like I was taking control of something. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Over the next few days, I went through old messages, gathered receipts, anything I could find. It wasn't just about getting revenge. It was about making sure I wasn't left with nothing. I had to protect myself, and more than that, I had to protect Emily. Through it all, I kept thinking about her. My daughter. I didn't know how to explain this to her. How would she ever understand? But I knew that if nothing else, I could fight for her. I would fight for her future. I couldn't let her be caught up in this mess, even if I didn't know how to make it right. Then, there was silence. Isabel didn't reach out. Nathan didn't reach out. I didn't know if I was relieved or terrified, but for the first time, it felt like I could breathe. It felt like a moment of peace, even though I knew the storm wasn't over. Maybe I didn't have all the answers yet. Maybe I didn't know what came next. But for the first time, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe I wasn't completely broken. Maybe there was still something worth fighting for.